It took me years to find the courage to tell this. And even now, I still regret it a little. On that full moon night, I woke up to a strange noise. A creaking sound coming from the mansion, as if someone was forcing something. Or trying to leave without being seen. If I had stayed lying in that hammock, maybe I would have never seen it. Maybe I would have never understood what truly haunted those roads. That's when I saw it. A rope swinging from the moving slowly as if it's your carried. Then, a silhouette began to descend down it. No rush, no hesitation. Burst part wasn't seeing that. It was realizing, seconds later, that it was just the beginning. Because when she touched the ground, everything became wrong in a way I still can't explain. This story came to me through my great-grandfather, Genaro, a man who spent his life crossing dirt roads in the countryside of Ceará, at a time when the world was slower and also quieter. He worked as a muleteer, transporting goods from one place to another, always accompanied by his donkey in a harsh routine made of dust, exhaustion, and nights out in the open. Anyone who has lived in the countryside knows that after the sun sets, the environment changes completely. The heat gives way to a mild chill, the sky fills with stars, and the sounds of the night begin to take over. But there is a specific moment, that instant when everything seems to normal. And that's exactly when something isn't. It was the 1940s, and on one of those long journeys, Genaro was already exhausted. His body heavy, his legs aching, and his eyes burning with fatigue. He knew he needed to stop before the night became too dense. That's when he spotted an old mansion, too large for such an isolated place, and surrounded by tall vegetation. The place was surrounded by twisted trees and a strange silence, different from the usual silence of the backlands. It wasn't the absence of sound, it was as if the environment was holding something back. Genaro approached slowly, pulling the donkey, and clapped his hands at the wooden gate, making the sound echo dryly through the empty space. For a few seconds, nothing happened, until the door finally opened and a woman appeared. She didn't seem surprised or suspicious, and that was what caught Genaro's attention the most. There was something different about her. It wasn't fear, nor distrust. It was as if she was already expecting someone there at that exact moment. "Good evening, ma'am. Would you have a place for me to spend the night?" The question was asked respectfully, as was customary at the time. The woman answered too quickly, almost without thinking. She said yes, that there was space, and pointed to the barn beside the house. Her direct and rushed manner caused a slight unease in Genaro at that moment. Genaro thanked her but looked around carefully. The sky was clear, the full moon already illuminating the land well, and the wind blew lightly through the trees. He then said he preferred to set up his hammock outside, between two nearby trunks. He spoke calmly, like someone already used to spending nights outdoors. The woman didn't like the answer. Her face changed slightly, and her tone became firmer as she insisted that he go to the barn. It no longer sounded like an invitation, but almost like an order. There was something in that request that sounded like a warning, even if he said directly in that strange moment. If Genaro had realized that as he should have, maybe he would have made a different decision. But he didn't, or simply didn't want to. He replied that he would be better off outside, maintaining his choice. The woman remained silent for a few seconds, a heavy, uncomfortable silence, as if it carried something left unsaid. Then she sighed and said he could do as he wished, but to be careful. She looked directly at him before adding that in that region there were stories about werewolves. Genaro reacted with a short, disbelieving laugh, saying he didn't believe in such things. Even so, something about that statement stayed with him. The woman didn't insist anymore. She turned her back and went into the mansion, closing the door behind her with a dry sound. The place returned to silence almost immediately. Genaro then set up his hammock between two nearby trees, arranged his belongings carefully, tied the donkey, and tried to relax, letting the exhaustion finally take over his body. The sounds of the night began to emerge gradually. First the crickets, then the soft movement of leaves in the wind, and in the distance some animal moving through the woods. Everything seemed normal, like any other night in the countryside. Still, there was something different about that environment, something hard to explain at that moment. It was a strange feeling in the air, almost as if the place was silently watching. Genaro tried to ignore it, closed his eyes, and let his body sink into the gentle sway of the hammock. The exhaustion was great, and it didn't take long for sleep to begin taking over, even with that persistent unease in the back of his mind. And it was there, lying in that hammock, believing it would be just another ordinary night, that he ended up getting close to something that would completely change everything he believed about the world. At that moment, however, he had no idea, and the silence around him seemed just a natural part of the countryside night. The night was already fully set when Genaro suddenly woke up. It wasn't a slow or calm awakening. It was abrupt, immediate, as if something had pulled him back to consciousness. For a few seconds, he remained still, trying to understand what had caused it, until he realized that something was out of place. What caught Genaro's attention wasn't a loud sound, but precisely the lack of it. The silence was different from anything he had ever experienced. Anyone who knows the countryside night knows there is always some noise, an insect, the wind, or a distant animal. But there was nothing there, as if all sounds had been interrupted. His body stiffened instantly. Still lying down, he looked at the sky through the leaves of the trees, illuminated by the cold light of the full moon. The shadows seemed denser, more defined, and at the same time deceptive. That's when he noticed something else that made the discomfort grow even more. The donkey was restless. It pulled the rope in short movements, tapped its hoof lightly on the ground, and let out a low sound, almost a grunt, that wasn't normal behavior. Genaro knew that animals sense things before anything else, always noticing what humans haven't yet seen, and that made his inner alert grow. That's when the sound appeared. A slow, dragging creak, like wood being forced under pressure. Genaro slowly turned his face toward the mansion. The noise came from there. Shortly after, another creak followed, clearer, closer, confirming that something was happening inside that house. If he had ignored it and tried to go back to sleep, nothing that came afterward would have happened. But Genaro didn't ignore it. He got up slowly, careful not to make noise. Each step was calculated, avoiding dry branches on the ground. His heart was already beating faster, not from fear but from an instinctive alert. He approached enough to observe better, but stayed hidden behind a bush, keeping his body partially crouched. His breathing was controlled, slow, trying not to reveal his presence. That's when he saw something that made his heart tighten. One of the upstairs windows was open, and from it hung a thick rope, well tied, gently swaying in the air. That didn't make sense. Why would someone leave through a rope when they could simply use the door? Genaro held his breath, his whole body on alert, and then it happened. A young woman appeared at the window and began descending the rope with agility, like someone already used to that movement. Her feet touched the ground lightly, almost without making any sound. She paused for a moment after reaching the ground. She looked around calmly, showing no rush or fear. That was what caught Genaro's attention the most. She didn't look like someone fleeing. It was as if she was simply following a routine. That sent a chill down his spine, but even so, he didn't move. Curiosity spoke louder. The young woman walked toward a nearby tree with calm steps. Without hesitation, she began removing her clothes right there, without looking around or trying to hide. Each piece was taken off naturally and placed on a low branch. The dress hung there, swaying slightly in the almost non-existent wind. That already made no sense, but it was still far from the worst. After that, she walked to the dirt road in front of the mansion. There was a patch of disturbed ground, as if some animal had passed through earlier, leaving the soil loose. She stopped exactly at that spot, stood still for a second, and then suddenly threw herself to the ground without hesitation, raising dust around her body. Genaro widened his eyes, unable to believe what he was seeing. The young woman began rolling in the dirt, rubbing herself forcefully, as if trying to cover her entire body with that dry dust. The movement was intense, repetitive, almost desperate, raising small clouds of dust around her. Still, it didn't seem like madness. There was a pattern, as if it were part of some kind of ancient ritual. Genaro's heart now pounded for real, and the air seemed heavier, harder to pull into his lungs. Even so, he didn't move. He didn't blink. He stayed there, completely focused, as if he knew he had to see it through to the end. Something was happening before him that couldn't be ignored, something beyond any ordinary explanation. Suddenly, she stopped. She lay completely still on the ground for a few seconds that felt far too long. Time seemed to slow down. Then, slowly, she began to get up, very slowly. But something was wrong, very wrong. The way her body moved was unnatural. Her arms seemed to stiff, and her back curved in a strange, unsettling way. If at that moment Genaro had decided to leave, he would have carried that doubt for the rest of his life. But he didn't. He stayed there, trapped by what he saw. And that is exactly what made him witness something even worse. Something he would never forget. Something that would completely change how he saw the world from that silent night onward. When the young woman finished standing up, she was no longer herself. Genaro knew it instantly, not as a thought, but as a certainty that rose within him. The body before his eyes had changed. Grown, deformed in a terrifying way. The bones seemed out of place, as if they had been forcibly rearranged, cracking beneath the skin. The silhouette before him was no longer human, but not entirely animal either. It was something in between, something wrong. Then the creature slowly raised its head, and the moonlight revealed what it had become. A dog, black, enormous, far too large to be natural. Its long pointed ears stood atop its head, and its eyes did not reflect like those of a normal animal. There was something in that gaze that Genaro never managed to forget. It wasn't just an animal observing. It was as if there was understanding there, awareness. The air around grew even heavier, almost impossible to breathe. Genaro didn't move. Not out of courage, but because his body simply didn't respond to what his mind tried to command. Then the creature made its first move. It lunged forward, but not like a normal dog would. It ran in a strange, wrong way, almost upright like an awkward human, letting out a sound like a roar. The sound was disturbing, its movement uncoordinated. It seemed as if it was still learning how to move in that body, as if it wasn't natural for it. Without making any other sound, the creature shot down the dirt road. And at that exact moment, dogs from around the area began barking. First one, then another, and another. Within seconds, several appeared, running after it as if responding to an invisible call. The noise of the chase gradually faded until it disappeared completely. And then the silence returned. But it wasn't the same as before. Now there was weight in that silence. There was presence. There was the certainty that it had been real. Genaro remained still for a time he could never measure. His body trembled slightly, his heart still racing, and his mind tried to understand what had just happened without finding answers. After some time, Genaro realized he needed to act. Even with the fear still present, there was something he needed to confirm. With slow, careful steps, he began approaching the tree where the young woman had left her clothes. Every movement was deliberate, as if any mistake could bring back what he had just witnessed. The dress was still there, exactly as before, hanging from the branch and swaying lightly. That confirmed everything had been real. It hadn't been imagination or a dream. He slowly extended his hand, but hesitated for a moment. Maybe that was the last moment he could still give up and simply leave, without getting involved further. But Genaro didn't give up. He carefully took the dress, as if the object carried something beyond fabric. He folded it calmly and stored it among his belongings. Then he returned to the hammock, but couldn't sleep again. His body was tired, but his mind remained awake, replaying every detail of what he had seen that silent night. He stayed there just waiting for time to pass. When the day finally began to break, everything seemed normal again. The clear sky, birds singing, the gentle wind through the trees. It was as if the night had been completely erased. But Genaro knew it hadn't. He felt it with a certainty that needed no explanation. As he packed his things to continue his journey, the mansion door opened again. The woman appeared and looked at him carefully. She asked if he had slept well. Genaro answered yes, almost automatically. She hesitated for a moment, as if gathering courage, and then asked if he had seen anything strange during the night. This time, Genaro didn't laugh like before. He looked directly at her and said firmly, "I did." Silence fell between them, heavy and tense. She stood still, absorbing every word. Genaro then slowly pulled out the dress, extending it toward her, and added, "This belonged to the werewolf." Her reaction was immediate and intense. The woman froze, her eyes fixed on the fabric he held, her face losing color instantly. Without saying a word, she took the dress from his hands and hurried into the house, almost breathless. Genaro remained outside, standing still, watching, feeling time drag around him. Each second seemed endless, as if the world had stopped along with him. Shortly after, she returned, but she was no longer the same, her face pale, eyes wide, breathing short. There was something different about her, something that showed fear and shock at the same time. When she entered the room, she found her daughter sleeping deeply in bed, naked, without any sign of dirt or marks from what had happened hours before. It was as if nothing had occurred. Genaro observed every detail, and in that instant understood something he would never forget. Not every monster comes from the woods. Some sleep inside the house. He knew that night had forever changed his perception of reality, and that the countryside stories that once seemed like folklore now held a terrifying and undeniable truth in his memory. He remained there for a few more moments, absorbing everything he had seen. The night had passed, but the weight of what happened still lingered over him. He took a deep breath, gathered his things, and finally continued his journey, carrying with him not only the certainty that darkness is not always in the forest. Sometimes it lies within houses and human hearts. Good night.